Have you ever felt like you're playing a game where someone else knows all the cheat codes? That was me. For years, I was what you'd call a smart investor. I devoured everything. Spinnerized candlestick patterns, spent late nights buried in earnings reports, had the S&P 500's every twitch tracked on a dozen different screens. My life was a symphony of alerts, news feeds, and technical analysis. I genuinely believed that having more information, more data, made me part of the smart money. I thought I was on the inside track, one step ahead of the retail crowd, armed with logic and reason in a world of chaos. But the truth was, my portfolio was just treading water, caught in the same currents as everyone else. I was winning some, losing some, but never truly getting ahead. I was just another voice in the echo chamber, another soldier in the trenches of the financial markets, fighting a war one didn't even understand. Then, my entire perspective was shattered. I met him. He was in some high-flying Wall Street guru you see on television, or a brash young crypto millionaire flexing on social media. He was the complete antithesis of that world. He was an older gentleman, the kind of person you'd walk past at a quiet suburban coffee shop and never look at twice. You'd probably assume he was a retired teacher or a librarian. Someone with a pension and too much time on his hands, quietly sipping his black coffee and reading a worn-out paperback. He had no digital footprint to speak of. No Twitter rants, no Reddit threads analyzing market sentiment, no exclusive Discord groups promising secret signals. He didn't have a Bloomberg terminal or a multi-monitor setup. In fact, he rarely even checked the charts during the day. Yet, his wealth grew with a silent, almost unnerving consistency. His portfolio rose, steadily and quietly, cutting through market noise and volatility as if it were guided by an invisible hand, as if he possessed a secret language that allowed him to understand the market's deepest, most deceptive lies. One afternoon, after watching the market inexplicably sell off on what seemed like universally positive news, I finally worked up the courage to ask him. I was desperate. I laid out my charts, my analysis, my frustration. How? I asked. How did you know? How did you see that reversal coming when every indicator, every piece of news was screaming by? I looked up from his book, a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips. He didn't point to a chart or quote a financial metric. Instead, he said something that completely rewired my brain. Because I don't read the market with my eyes, he explained softly. I listen to how it lies through its movements. That sentence hit me like a physical blow. It was a profound and deeply unsettling revelation. All this time, I had been meticulously drawing trend lines, calculating moving averages, and putting my faith in historical patterns. I was treating the market like a math problem, believing that if I just found the right formula, I could solve it. He wasn't solving a problem. He was observing a psychological drama. He wasn't watching numbers on a screen. He was watching the raw, unfiltered emotions of the crowd. He was waiting for the precise moment when the market's actions began to betray the story it was telling. He was looking for the dissonance, the lie. He leaned in, his voice dropping to an almost conspiratorial whisper. The market doesn't crash on bad news, he said, the words hanging in the air between us. Everyone expects that. The market crashes when good news stops making people excited. From that moment on, my entire approach was turned on its head. I started to force myself to ignore the price charts, to tune out the noise of financial news anchors. Instead, I began to watch reactions. I learned to see the market not as a collection of prices, but as a living, breathing entity governed by belief and fear. A company would release a stellar earnings report, beating all analyst expectations, yet the stock would barely budge or even drift slightly downward. Before, I would have dismissed this as a temporary anomaly. I saw it for what it was, a massive, flashing red flag. A CEO would appear on a major network, delivering a passionate, confident speech about how their company was stronger than ever. Yet the stock price would inexplicably dip on high volume. Before, I would have seen a buying opportunity. Now, I recognized it as another critical warning sign. The market was telling me that the story was no longer being believed. He had a name for his philosophy, called it trading the faith of the crowd. His strategy was deceptively simple, yet fiendishly difficult to execute. He observed the prevailing narrative. He watched as a single idea, a single belief, took hold and spread like wildfire across CNBC, Reddit, and FinTwit. When that belief became so widespread, so universally accepted, that it was no longer questioned, when it was repeated in every forum and on every channel as an undeniable truth, that was his signal. That was the moment he would quietly, almost invisibly, take the other side of the trade. He was a contrarian in the purest sense of the word, not out of stubbornness, but out of a deep understanding of human psychology and the cyclical nature of mass delusion. He wasn't a day trader, frantically jumping in and out of positions. Keith's approach was more like that of a patient predator. He would wait, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, for the perfect setup. He was waiting for that precise, almost imperceptible moment when unwavering optimism solidified into something harder, more brittle, when it became a religion. He called this pivotal moment the mirage trade. It was his art form, shorting the beautiful, shimmering illusion, just moments before the heat of reality caused it to shatter into a million pieces, leaving behind only the scorched earth of panicked selling. He wasn't betting against a company, he was betting against the certainty of the crowd. I remember one instance with perfect clarity, right at the peak of the electric vehicle boom. Every stock with the letters E and V in its name was soaring to astronomical heights. Valuations had become completely detached from reality. Analysts were publishing price targets that seemed to be plucked from thin air. Everyone, from seasoned fund managers to teenagers on TikTok, was convinced that this was a new paradigm, a revolution that could only go in one direction, up. During this frenzy, he turned to me with that same calm, knowing look and said, "When everyone believes Tesla can only go up, that's precisely when it can't." He wasn't looking at production numbers or profit margins. He wasn't timing the price action. He was timing belief itself. He knew that when a belief becomes absolute, it has no more fuel to burn. It has reached its peak potential energy, and the only way left to go is down. Later, as the crypto mania was reaching its zenith and stories of overnight millionaires were everywhere, I asked him a question that had been haunting me. How do you know when we've hit the absolute top? How do you pinpoint that exact moment? He didn't pull out a complex formula or a historical chart. He simply took a napkin from the dispenser on the table and wrote down a single, elegant sentence. The top isn't a number. It's when nobody doubts it anymore. He knew that the market's peak wasn't a price point. It was a psychological state. It was the moment of maximum conviction, the point where skepticism dies and is replaced by pure, unadulterated faith. And it was at that exact point of emotional climax that he would make his move. He never once bragged about his wins. There were no victory laps, no screenshots of his P&L posted online with captions like, "I called it." He operated in complete silence. He would identify the illusion, take his position, and then exit just as quietly, long before the chaos erupted, long before the panic set in and the digital blood started to spill across the ticker tape. Would simply vanish back into the background, leaving the noise and the fury for everyone else to deal with. That's when I finally understood. The real, enduring winners on Wall Street aren't the loudest voices in the room. They aren't the ones on magazine covers or the ones with the largest social media followings. The real winners are the silent ones, the ghosts in the machine. They are the ones who have mastered their own emotions and learned to act with cold, calculated precision when everyone else around them feels utterly and completely invincible. He wasn't just a trader or an investor. His precision, his patience, his ability to strike at the moment of absolute certainty made him something else entirely. He was a financial assassin, and the most powerful lesson he ever taught me, it was this: if you want to survive and truly thrive in this game long term, you have to stop seeing the crowd as a source of data to be analyzed. You have to learn to see it for what it truly is, a tidal wave of raw, primal emotion. You have to understand its hopes, its dreams, and most importantly, its fears. Because in the end, markets don't move based on logic, fundamentals, or sophisticated algorithms. They move on belief. And belief, no matter how strong, always, eventually, breaks.